to talk about cultural legacy and art and have the honor to have Dana Lasso, Isom Johnson, sorry, and Kat, I'm not going to pronounce your last name. Mustazia, yes. Welcome them to the stage, great. How many artists do we have in the audience? Art is important, right? So we're going to talk about establishing a legacy and what technology means for art now, okay? Great. So Kat, I'm going to start with you. All right? So since digitally we have more access to creative content, does it decrease the value of art overall?
I mean, there's art and then there's content, right? I think that not everything that is produced that we look at is art. And what I might see on my Twitter feed or my Facebook feed might be content, might be trying to sell me something or promote something. But what I need art to do is, make me question what is meaningful to my life, and that happens very rarely, and when it does, I feel very differently than when I see streams of other stuff.
So since, technology is causing what I like to call content overload, right? And we now have very short attention spans, can we still appreciate art?
I mean, I think in each age, we want something else from art. I watched a very old movie from the 40s, and there were very long camera shots, and I realized I can't watch that now as a modern viewer because I expect quick takes. I expect film to be a little bit differently, to be cut differently, and it helped me realize that we are also changing as technology changes, and we come to expect different things from art or from our media. And I think now we are sophisticated enough consumers of visual media, for example, of moving images, that we want them to go faster. We are capable of consuming it more.
Technology kind of helps that, right? So sometimes technology can help us keep up with those things, right?
That's right.
Right. So Dana, let's talk about art, legacy, and entrepreneurship. So how is art enabling, how is it eliminating, so to speak, the starving artist syndrome? How is it helping with entrepreneurship?
So in my work, I work as the trend expert at Etsy, and we are a global platform. So we are the marketplace and the home to over 2 million artists across the world. And I think places like Etsy are really allowing artists who never really had a platform before to reach over 34 million buyers, because I think the major difference between 15 years ago and today is that an artist never had a platform to even reach the amount of people that they can today that technology allows them to.
So I think that with art, there's always this stigma of you have to be discovered, right? So now it's like the opposite. You don't have to be discovered. You can promote yourself and, kind of make your own discovery of yourself, right? And allow people. I mean, that's kind of like what happens with social media influencers, right? People find them, they like them, and they support them, right? So what would you say, Dana, with Etsy? Etsy's amazing. I think I'm always on Etsy buying something. Did you find the most unique things? Am I right? You find the most unique things on Etsy, right? So what do you think is the next step in entrepreneurship for these artists? Because we really want to eliminate the starving artist thing. I think that there are a lot of artists who are leveraging technology to make, not just thousands, hundreds of thousands, but even millions. I've seen some artists really do based on technology.
So I think what's really exciting about Etsy is that whenever you have an idea, it takes 20 cents and an idea to start a business on Etsy. And we're only taking 5% of each transaction. So we're really enabling that seller, that maker, to build their business. And in fact, the dress that I'm wearing today is from an Etsy artist by the name of Domestic. He's an incredibly talented designer. So I think not only is there a low barrier for entry to even become an entrepreneur, but you're reaching those millions of people, and you really can let your creativity flow. You don't have those blockers that you would, working for a specific art gallery if you're an artist, or if you're a designer, listening to the sounds of a creative director or a potter or whatever that may be. You're really allowed to let those creative juices flow.
So can we get a little bit into technology? Let's talk about AI, artificial intelligence. So, Kat, can art that's mostly created by AI, artificial intelligence, have the same impact as like the Mona Lisa or, a Picasso or something like that?
Okay, so the idea of machines making art makes a lot of people a lot uncomfortable, because I think it gets to something we feel is owned by us as humans, and it feels very strange to let that go and to let machines make art. But I think that a lot of those fears are just they have a lot to do with not really seeing a new medium for what it is. I think that machines or algorithms or bots that seem to have a behavior of their own, they're software, and I think that they're a particular kind of software that moves very fast, that repeats very quickly, and it creates this illusion of autonomy. And I think that is a medium, a new medium, the way that film was a new medium a century ago. And if you think about it in terms of history, films came about very quickly after photography was invented. So people were just starting to wrap their heads around the idea that you don't have to paint something to see an image of it, and you could just like point your camera and create that image, and then all of a sudden those images were moving, and it was terrifying. There's this apocryphal story of people falling out of their seats in terror when they first saw the first film, because it was a locomotive coming at them, right? And I think that these pieces of software, these bots that seem to be moving on their own, they are a new medium. It feels terrifying. We don't know what to make of it, and we're unable to see the illusion, right? Just like the people watching that first film, they saw the illusion, but were unable to see the mechanics. Oh, it's a projection, right? And I think a lot of people, we all lack a language for what AI is, but I think it can be. So to answer finally your question, I think it can be very expressive. It behaves in a certain way, and you just like you look at a puppet. Does it move in an interesting way? Does it do what I expect it to do? Does it fail? If it fails, is it failing in a super interesting way that teaches us something about being human?
Dana, do you want to add to that? And also, not just Etsy, but just your experience overall. You're dealing with entrepreneurs a lot. You have them on your show all the time. But what about AI? Because that seems to be the next big thing, or one of the next big things. And it is, Kat said it on point. She said the word fear, and a lot of entrepreneurs fear that.
Yeah. I mean, I think Etsy is really the destination for creative expression. And as a shopper, when you remove your mind as being a maker and you think about shoppers, people want unique things. They want things that can't be found, that are reproduced, that are reprinted, all of these things. And when you have new technologies like 3D printing and things like that, you have the option of customization, which I think is really key, because more and more people want to express themselves. They want to figure out how else can they show off their personality, and technology allows for them to work directly with the maker, the artist, and really put their personal stamp on it.
Yeah, and I think Etsy is a testament to the fact that the more automation you have, the more the marketplace demands uniqueness, right? No one wants the same exact sweater.
I think that is amazing, because I think I've always, this is very like enlightening for me, because I've always thought about customization. I'm like, as an entrepreneur, how do you scale that? So now technology is giving us opportunities to scale it, wherein a lot of entrepreneurs would get turned down for investments or other opportunities because their business is not, quote, scalable. So that's great. Could we talk, just staying in technology, about creating some of the things I've seen that artists are creating now that are amazing. They're using AR and VR. I see a lot of artwork with, I see the painting with VR now, VR painting, that's amazing. Augmented reality embedded into photos, that's a personal project I'm working on. Little plug there. So Kat, could we start with you talking about that a little bit?
So, but what's the question?
Oh, sorry. How do you think that's helping artists grow as entrepreneurs? Or innovate?
It's definitely powering innovation, right? I think what's interesting about every kind of cutting-edge technology is it forces people who might be practicing art in an older medium to reconsider what they're doing with that medium. So if you're making film and there's AR and VR available, even if you're still going to make film, you're going to start to wonder, what are my films doing that AR, VR can't? And how do I justify continuing to make films in a particular way if they can be turned into AR or VR? Maybe the Impressionists started painting in a certain way as a response to photography, right? So I think that's very healthy, and I think that's a cycle that always forces art and artists to reinvent themselves.
Yeah, I think what really blows me away is how many Etsy artists and creators are able to revamp and innovate something from old art. So I think we were just talking about music, right? And when you search on Etsy sound art, you see over 13,000 search results. And these people are creating these incredible pieces of art based on lyrics or the way bass and sound and treble, all of that kind of look and feel like in real life. But that is such an innovative take on an older piece of art. So I think creativity is just explosive on Etsy, and I love seeing how they reinvent things.
So how do artists create art that stands the test of time?
Say again?
How do creators, artists, makers create art that stands the test of time? How do they create something that's going to stand the test of time? Because this is about cultural legacy. So the artists that we're seeing today that are hot, right? And then, tomorrow they could be not according maybe to social media or something. How do they create things that stand the test of time? So it could be also tools that are available. We could talk about that, things of that nature.
So I think that there's, to give you an example, the current so-called AI artists, they all cluster around Twitter. They all tweet out their work. There's a pretty robust community of such artists, or maybe they're computational artists. There are many terms. Not everything being created right now is gonna stand the test of time, but some things will, right? Just like Picasso was painting within a certain environment within a certain peer group who all used a certain kind of visual language. The current crop of artists are each clustering around their communities and using their language, visual or audio or whatever, and those communities are golden, right? Those are like fertile places where magic happens, and which of those artists end up producing work that you want to come to again and again? I mean, that's the magic part.
I think artists that stand the test of time are really people who continue to stay authentic to themselves and not try to ride the coattails or try to be something that they're not. So if they just continue to be authentic to their style, their aesthetic, and then they'll see if it blossoms. But it's not about trying to be the next. It's trying to be the best you.
Well, with that, I'll leave us with one final question. What advice would you give to any artists that are in the audience or watching this later on about starting their career and developing a cultural art legacy?
I would say start an Etsy shop. It only takes 20 cents and an idea. And remain true to yourself and authentic to your own voice and style aesthetic.
Yeah, that true to yourself. It's actually very good and very healthy to work in obscurity for a while. I think that's when you really understand who you are before anyone else on the outside tells you what they like. You can find that out later, or what the market likes. I think first, if you want to make anything meaningful, you have to understand what you like.
Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you. Give it up for Dana and Kat, everyone.